Hi there, welcome to live stream Yoga with Louise. Tips and cues to keep you safe and strong on the mat. Today's class follows on RACHET 1, except today we're strengthening arms, core, and legs, ratcheting it up just a little bit more. As you start ratcheting things up on the mat, if you find you start fatiguing, you can either take a rest at the top end of your mat in mountain pose, or you can find a more reclining position in child pose at the bottom end of your mat and take a little breather as we transition between the left and the right side of the body. We're using as our transition between the two sides today a modified sun salutation B. As always, play where you're comfortable, modify when you need to, rest when you need to. You ready? Let's hit the mat. We're going to set up today standing in a wide mountain. So you're going to give me feet, maybe in a comfortable summer seating, just underneath your hips, or maybe just inside of hip width distance apart. Start to stand up nice and tall. Start to look for a sense of lengthening through the spine and the lower belly. You're going to bring your hands to Prayer Mudra in front of your heart, taking a moment just to compose yourself as we start to fashion our modified sun salutation B, which you will remember is going to be our transition between the two sides. Take a big breath in to prepare. On the exhale, you're going to sit back into a modified chair, weight into the bum of your heel, and you're going to do that 3 times. Coming to a high mountain, and then taking a seat in prayer. Then fold it forward, placing your hands on the mat or the hands on your legs as you bend and extend maybe 3 times, just giving the back chain of your legs an opportunity to warm up. Then take a little lunge step back, a small lunge step back with your right leg and set up a pyramid frame between the 2 legs, maybe beginning to rock back and forth between the front leg and the back leg. Starting to feel quite an intense stretch up the lead leg. Then take a full lunge step back and hold, trying to drop your fingertips or your palms to the mat as you frame the lead leg on either side. Trying to drop nice and low through the pelvis and look for a little bit more opening through the hip flexors. Step it back into plank from here, holding your body line nice and parallel to the mat. Stay here in plank or drop to 4-point kneeling and work a modified chaturanga, either knees or no knees, bending the elbows, hugging them in towards the ribs, trying to hover off the floor to work those arms. Then drag the weight forward over your wrists, coming into an up dog modified so that the weight is on your palms and on the tops of your feet, with the rest of your leg line off the mat. Exhale as you come into down dog, starting to tuck the feet under and pausing here. Maybe starting to bend and extend the legs dynamically, maybe 3 times. Staying on your palms or coming on the tips of your fingers to take a little hop up, grounding through your feet to sit back into your chair, Utkatasana, and float back to your start position. All right, that was our Sun B. Let's start to work side 1. Fist your hands together and float your fisted hands overhead in a long steeple-like fashion. Holding steady here, reaching knuckles for the sky as you try to form the longest needle-like frame with your body. From here, you're going to find your way into a warrior 3, trying to keep the fisted hand position overhead. Let's float the left leg behind us. You could work with a braced foot or a soft toe line on your lifted leg, depending on how you're feeling. And you're trying to come into as much of a tabletop line as you can, keeping as square as you can through the shoulders and the hips. Then bend the lead leg, angle the back foot in slightly at 45, and find your way into a warrior 1. Arms are still fisted overhead. Maybe you want to wiggle the lead leg forward a little bit more and see if you can get more drop down through the pelvis. Trying to keep your hands fisted overhead You're going to step up into a medium-sized tree. So as you step up, you're going to bend the left leg and you're going to place the sole of that foot on the inseam of the right leg, either below the knee line or maybe big toe to floor, but let's keep it small today. Keep reaching those knuckles for the sky. Then bring your hands back down to prayer as you find your original standing mountain pose on the mat. Exhale to sit back into chair. Inhale to come back up to mountain. Let's do that 3 times. And after your last chair, maybe taking it into a forward fold, Uttanasana, hands on the floor or hands on your legs as you bend and extend a few times. Then take a little lunge step back with the left leg, setting up a small pyramid between the 2 legs and starting to rock the weight back and forth between the front leg and the back leg. Trying to look for that delicious stretch up the lead leg. Then take a big lunge step back on the left. Hold your lunge line, high spider fingertips or flat hands on the mat as you try to drop down a little bit lower through the pelvis. Ease your way from here to a full plank. Pause. Take a modified or a full chaturanga dandasana to bring yourself down on the mat. Bend your elbows, keep hugging them in towards the ribs. See if you can hover off the floor for a second. Draw the weight forward over your wrists, flowing into an up dog frame. And then transitioning seamlessly into the down dog. Bend and extend a few times from your down dog frame, playing with a relaxed down dog. End in the bend frame, maybe coming onto the tips of your fingers, take a hop, ground your feet, sit into your chair, floating the hands overhead so it feels like they're trying to frame your ears on either side. Then come back to your standing frame in mountain as we transition onto side 2. Fist your hands, begin to float your fisted hands overhead and find that tall steeple stretch. Keep trying to come out through the waist and the hips. Keep your ears framed overhead as you find your way into a warrior 3 on side 2. So begin to float the right leg behind you, looking for a long tabletop line through the body. Maybe playing with a braced or a soft toe line. Then bend the lead leg, angle the back foot in at 45, and find your way into a warrior 1. Virabhadrasana 1, trying to keep those fisted hands reaching for the sky, so knuckles to sky. Keep the knuckles to sky position as you find your way into tree pose, Virabhadrasana, stepping up the back leg, keeping a bend to that back leg as you find purchase on the inseam of your anchoring leg. Looking for a few quiet moments of stillness in tree pose, Virabhadrasana. Find your way back into mountain, hands to heart center. Exhale for chair, inhale for mountain prayer. Give yourself at least 3 oscillations between the 2 frames. Remember to push the weight back into your bum and your heels as you find your chair. And then on your next chair, find a forward fold, Uttanasana, and begin to bend and extend. Every time looking for more extension of the back chain of your legs. Step the right leg back, finding your little pyramid, and begin to rock the body weight back and forth. Anytime you find that step back into pyramid, Parsavottanasana, see if you can find an increasingly wider frame to really stretch that front leg. Then step back into a full lunge and hold, framing your lead leg on either side. Step back into a full plank, Kumbhakasana, and hold, body line nice and parallel to the mat. When you're ready, give me a full or a modified chaturanga to lead straight into up dog. Pause, looking for that strength through the arms, that strength through the core and the legs. Then tuck the toes under, find your down dog, and start to play with the line, bending both legs in unison, and then trying to straighten up and get more anchorage through the heels. Take a little hop up, ground the feet, and find your way into your chair. Hands to heart center. Take a moment, center yourself. We're going to open up from here into a full triangle, leading with the right leg in front. Think of that warrior one line you use. So start to step the lead leg back. Find your warrior one leg stance through the legs, but then straighten up both legs and extend your arms in a somewhat T-frame, reaching for the wall in front and the wall behind. Focus on your lead arm. Somebody's pulling you forward, pop out the back hip and begin to hinge forward. Maybe resting hand to shin or hand on the inseam of your leg. You could even tap the floor with your fingertips or your palm as you find purchase on the inseam of your lead leg in open triangle, Utthita Trikonasana. Try to get a nice stack on the hips so it feels like the top hip is stacking on the bottom hip and you really opened up through the trunk. Stay here or start to move into a full revolved triangle by bringing the top arm closer to your ear. Then keep pivoting through the whole trunk as you twist your body in the opposite direction so that your T-frame is now looking towards the opposite end of the room. And you've got your lead hand maybe tucked around the calf or the thigh or even on the opposite side of your lead leg as you come into the full twisted or rotated version of triangle Parivirta Trikonasana. Keep that back leg angled in at 45. Stay here in your rotated triangle or find your way into twisted half moon by bending your lead leg slightly, placing your lead hand slightly away from your lead leg, pushing off the back leg, keeping that rotation through the trunk as you float the back leg up and off the mat, maybe floating it at about hip height. Hold your twisted half moon and then step back into a full lunge line, once more framing your lead leg on either side with high fingertips or a flat palm. Think about how you're going to use this lunge frame to find your way into a fallen triangle. We're going to change the setup frame of the lead leg. Step it across the midline of the body to the outside of your mat, knife edging the foot and trying to make that right hip nice and heavy to the floor without collapsing through the shoulders. Stay here or find your way into Wild Thing Kamattrasana by focusing on the leg that you stepped through. You're going to start bending that knee softly, ground the foot, start to rotate your belly up towards the sky, coming into a modified three-legged table and floating one hand overhead. Maybe you're looking up towards the sky. Lead your way back into your fallen triangle. Find your way back into plank. Squaring up, body line nice and parallel to the mat. Maybe coming onto the tips of your fingers as you find a little hop up to the top end of your mat. Grounding through your feet to find a forward fold, maybe hands to floor or hands to shin. And then softly, ragdoll style, lead up to run through your transition for side two. Hands to heart center. Exhale to sit back in chair. Inhale to come back to mountain. Do that at least 3 or 4 times, finding a gentle oscillation between the two frames, making sure you're bumping the weight back into your butt and your heels. Then maybe on your next seat, find your way into a forward fold. Try to get more grounding through the hands, more length through the legs as you bend and extend in your fold. Then step the left leg back, set up your triangle and begin to rock the weight forwards and backwards between the two legs. Take it into a full lunge, step back and hold, trying to drop down through the pelvis, try to open up those hip flexors. Ease your way into a full plank. Chaturanga Dandasana comes next. Flowing into an up dog and then transitioning into a down dog and beginning to bend and extend the legs in unison while holding the down dog frame. Take a little hop step up. Find your way into chair. Hands to heart center as you prepare for your triangle series on the second side. Step the right leg back, angling the leg slightly in at 45. Straighten out both legs and open up the arms into your T-frame. Reach forward. Start to hinge, dropping to the shin or the inseam of your lead leg and find the hand position that works for you on the inseam of your lead leg. Looking for that rotation and that stack on the hips. Stay here in open triangle or start to find your way into a rotation through the trunk. Bring the top arm closer towards your ear. Begin to rotate through the trunk, finding purchase on the outside of the lead leg as you twist your trunk in the opposite direction. Stay here in Parivrtta Trikonasana or find your way into a twisted half moon. Maybe soften your lead leg. Place your hand slightly in front of you on the mat. You can give me a stutter on the back leg if you need to. Try to keep that soft rotation through your trunk as you float up the back leg. Parivrtta Ardha Chandrasana. Alrighty. Step back into a lunge line, placing both hands either side of the lead leg and try to get a nice drop down through the trunk. Think about how you're going to use this lunge line to set up your fallen triangle. So change the position of your lead leg. Start to step it across the midline of the body, knife edging your foot, and maybe giving me a little bit of weight into your left hip this time. Stay here in fallen triangle, or maybe just a full plank if you find this too challenging, or bleed your way into wild thing, Kamachasana. Focus on the leg that you've stepped through. Start to bend that knee, ground the foot. Start to rotate your hips up towards the sky. Pressing through both feet, pressing through your grounding hand while floating the other arm and maybe looking up towards that palm. That's your drishti, your focal point. Lead your way back into your fallen triangle. Ease your way from here into a plank. Body line nice and parallel to the mat. Stay here with flat hands or maybe coming onto the tips of your fingers, taking a little hop up. Find your way into a forward fold hold. Uttanasana, maybe hands on the floor to hold, or maybe hands on your shins. Ragdoll style bleed up. Let's find our way back into our transition flow. Standing up nice and tall in mountain, Tadasana. Exhale to take a seat in chair. Start to move dynamically between mountain and chair, finding a little rhythm of your own. After your next seat, take it into a forward fold. Back chain of the leg should feel a lot more open now. Begin to bend and extend, maybe even looking for an opportunity to extend and hold. Then step the right leg back. Find your pyramid frame. Every time trying to step a little bit wider as you rock the weight forwards and backwards on the 2 feet. Maybe holding your pyramid, trying to ground both feet as the legs warm up. Then step it back into your low lunge and pause here. Sirsabhustasana. Placing both hands on the mat and just holding. Step it back into a full plank. Chaturanga Dandasana to bring you down with control. Find your way into up dog. And then bleed into down dog and begin to dynamically bend and extend the legs together so you're working a relaxed dog line. Both knees tracking forward as you bend and extend. End in the bent line, take a little hop forward. Sitting into your chair. Bleed up, hands to heart center as we start to play on the first side in a warrior 2 line, leading with the right leg in front. Take a big lunge step back, starting to open up the back foot to 90 as you windmill the arms open. Front leg is bent, knees stacked over the ankle, and the back leg is open at 90. Tap the wall in front, tap the wall behind you, and look for strength in Warrior 2, Virabhadrasana 2. Now start to bend the lead elbow without leaning heavily into the lead thigh. You're just going to tap elbow to knee. You're still looking for a sense of holding the weight of your body in the core as you open up the top arm to the sky. Stay here, resting elbow to knee, or drop down into a side angle, placing your lead hand on the inseam of your lead leg, maybe pushing with the back of the arm, resisting with the leg, and trying to drop down nice and low through the pelvis. Stay here in your side angle, or maybe find your way into a bind by softening the bottom arm, tucking it between the two legs, and trying to bind the hands behind your back in a little bear grip. We played with this one earlier on in the week. Stay here in your low side angle, or find your way into bird of paradise by heel toeing the back foot in, walking it all the way until it stacks underneath the bottom hip or the back leg. Transfer the weight from the front leg to the back leg. Take a moment to find your balance on the mat. Peel up, trying to keep the hands bound between the two legs. Once you've found your balance, maybe starting to straighten up the leg that you've bound under. Then try to keep the hands bound as they are. Reposition yourself in a soft forward fold at the top end of the mat as you come into a soft Bhuja Pedasana, maybe bending and extending both legs in unison while trying to keep the arms bound behind your back. Transition, undo the hands. Tuck your hands palms up underneath your feet as you come into Gorilla Pose, Padahastasana, starting to rock the weight back and forth between the balls and the heels of your feet. Legs preferably extended, or giving me a soft bend in the knees if you need to. Look for that little inversion of the blood in your head. You ready? Let's do side two. Peel the hands up. Start to peel up into your loose mountain frame, Tadasana. Get ready for your transition flow. Hands to heart center. Big breath in, find a seat and chair. Inhale to come back to mountain. Give yourself at least 3 or 4 flow throughs between the seat and the tall standing frame. And in your seat, take it into a forward fold, hands to floor or hands to legs, as you dynamically bend and extend through the legs. Maybe holding the fold with an extended leg line for a moment or two before you ease your way into your little pyramid step back and start to rock the weight between grounding the front foot and grounding the back foot. Maybe trying to ground both feet and hold the pyramid frame for a few soft seconds before taking a full step back into the lunge line and pausing here. Looking for that drop down, wiggling the legs further apart as the groin starts opening up. Ease your way into a full plank and pause, nice and strong through the arms, the core, and the legs. Chaturanga down by bending the elbows. Use bent knees if you need to. Drag the weight forward over your wrists. Find your way into an up dog. And then bleed into a down dog. Work your down dog dynamically by bending and extending the legs in unison. Every time you extend, you try to connect those heels to the floor as best you can. Alrighty, take a little hop up. Ground your feet. See if you can bleed your way back into chair. We're going to work that warrior 2 sequence on the second side. Find your way to heart center. When you're ready, take a big lunge step back with the right leg, opening up, windmilling your arms up into a T-frame. Make sure that you've opened up the back foot to 90, wiggle the legs further apart, and try to drop the pelvis nice and low as you tap the wall behind and then tap the wall in front. Try not to drop the arms, so try to have them as parallel to the mat as you can, equal on both sides. Then start to bend the lead elbow without leaning heavily on the lead leg. Find your first side angle frame. Stay here, elbow to thigh, or start to drop the lead arm down, anchoring to the floor if you can. You could use a block underneath the hand if you need it. Stay here, just trying to drop your pelvis low, or find your way into a bind. Soften the bottom arm. Tuck the hand between the legs, interlacing the hands behind you. Start to heel toe the back leg in. Maybe stacking underneath your hip. Transfer the weight from the front leg to the back leg. Take a moment Just find your balance on the mat, repositioning if you need to. Lead your way up. Try to keep the hands bound between the two legs. Maybe starting to open up and extend the leg that you've bound under. And then keeping the bind, take a step towards the top of the mat, trying to square up through the feet as best you can. So you're thinking of that mountain frame that you were standing in the beginning of the class. Legs are in parallel. Try to keep the bind so really opening up through the shoulders as you stretch those arms, bending and extending in Bhuja Pelasana, a nice little shoulder opening pose. Then unbind from between the two arms. Keep the loose forward fold as you tuck your hands palms up underneath your feet, trying to extend and hold the extended leg line. And then gently just rock the weight between the balls of your feet, starting to get a nice little massage going into the way back into your transition flow. Hands to heart center. Exhale to sit back in chair. Inhale to sit up nice and tall. Start to flow dynamically between chair and mountain. At least 3 or 4 little flows. Then hold your chair and take it into a forward fold, bending and extending through the legs. To maybe extend and hold, legs should feel nicely warm. Little step back on the right for your pyramid. Starting to rock back and forth, grounding first the back leg and then the front leg. Lifting the other toes off, and toe and heel off the mat as you play. So if we play in the toe-heel position here, maybe then holding your pyramid, looking for that intense stretch up the lead leg, really draw up the energy from the knee along the quad. And then step back into a full lunge and just hold here for a moment, trying to drop that pelvis nice and low. Ease your way from here to a full plank. Chaturanga Dandasana brings you down with control. Find your up dog and then transition into your down dog. Work it dynamically by bending and extending through the legs. Take a little hop up. Find your way into your chair. Lead up, hands to heart center. Keeping your prayer position through the hands now, we're going to sit back into prayer, up into a prayer chair. So you're going to think weighted to your bum and your heels. You're going to hold here, trying to really push back towards the back end of your mat. Take a big breath in and then start to rotate right, trying to tuck your left elbow to the outside of your right knee while keeping the rest of your chair frame steady. Lead back to center, still holding the chair, so working those legs, working the core. All right, let's take a little step back with the left leg coming into a high lunge. So push the weight back into your back heel so it feels like your body weight is equally dispersed front and back. Then tuck the left elbow to the outside of the right knee as you come back into your twisted lunge. And twist your trunk. Drop the knee of the bottom leg, coming into a modified low lunge and trying to get more lean forward so that you can feel the hip flexors starting to stretch. Big breath in. On the exhale, twist towards your lead leg, trying to hook an elbow to the outside of that knee. Then untwist your trunk, place your hands on the floor, step up the lead leg, and then take a big toe lock using your middle index finger and thumb. Grab the big toe of each foot and try to extend and hold the leg line. You can bend and extend dynamically if you need to, as you find Padangusthasana, a nice toe lock forward fold. Actively tug the toes up. Use a bent elbow line to float your elbows wide so you're working arms, legs, and core in this position. Think of the body weight trying to be equally dispersed between the balls and the heels of your feet. And soften the knees. Peel up. Let's transition. Find your way to heart center. Exhale for chair. Inhale for mountain. Give yourself a few flow throughs. Maybe using a nice audible breath pattern. Play with the movement, make it your own. When you're ready, after your next chair, find your way into a forward fold and begin to bend and extend. And then maybe look for an opportunity to extend and hold. Step back the left leg, set up your pyramid. Start to rock as you heel toe with the feet. Grounding through the whole back foot as you lift the front toes off the mat. Then grounding through the whole front foot as you lift the back heel off the mat. Then maybe looking for an opportunity to ground and hold both feet while still keeping that pyramid frame so all 10 toes are looking straight to the front of your mat. Parshavottanasana, intense pyramid. Right, step it back into a full lunge and hold, trying to really look for that drop down through the pelvis. When you're ready, plank it out. Bend through the elbows as you chaturanga down to hovering off the mat. Drag your weight forward over the wrist, setting yourself up in an up dog with the weight resting on your palms and the tops of your feet. Strong core, strong arms. Exhale for down dog and begin to bend and extend dynamically through both legs, looking for more anchor through the heels every time you find the full expression of down dog. Step or hop it up. Find your way into your chair. Hands to heart center. Take a moment to center yourself. Keeping the prayer position, you're going to find your way back into chair and hold. Weight into your bum and your heels. Keep the weight in your bum and your heels as you start to twist left, right elbow to the outside of the left knee. Parivarta Utkatasana. Keep the chair, come back to center. Hands on the floor if you need to. Take a lunge step back with the right leg this time. Pressing the weight back into your back heel. Keep that active prayer position through the hands. Elbows are wide, hands are pressing into each other. Then see if you can twist towards your lead leg, hooking the elbow to the outside of the lead knee. Keeping your high lunge, come back to center with the hands. Then relax the back knee, but keep the toes tucked under so that you're working the arch into the foot. Keep leaning forward slightly so that you can feel that opening on the back hip flexor. Start to rotate towards the lead leg, find your hook. Then bleed back to center. Place your hands on the floor, step up the back leg and come straight into a toe lock forward fold. Either holding the extended leg line with the weight equal on the balls and the heels, thinking toes to sky, elbows float wide for your arms and legs. You can bend and extend dynamically if you need to, or hold the stretch in Padangusthasana. Feel the blood starting to pool in the head as you invert the blood flow. Lead up. Let's find our transition flow. Hands to heart center. Exhale to take your seat. Inhale to stand up tall. Give yourself a few flows between chair and mountain. End in your chair frame. Fold it forward. Grounding to the mat if you can as you bend and extend dynamically through the legs to maybe extend and hold. Step or hop, finding your way. No, not step or hop, my bad. Right leg steps back. You're going to set up your pyramid, rocking the weight back and forth. To maybe ground and hold both legs. Trying to ground through the hands as best you can. Then big lunge, step back with the right leg. Try to drop down a little bit lower through the pelvis. Frame the lead leg on either side with your arms. Step it back into a full plank when you're ready. And then work your chaturanga to bleed seamlessly from your up dog into your down dog, where you're going to start to bend and extend dynamically through the legs, trying to anchor your heels every time you find the full expression of down dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. End in the bent leg line, hop it up, round through your feet, as you find your chair, hands to heart center. From here, find a tabletop fold. Legs as extended as you can manage, trying to have the weight equal between the balls and the heels. Fold it forward, place your hands on the mat, step or hop back into a full down dog. Hold the down dog, trying to pike your bum up nice and high to the sky. Then try to keep your shoulders and your hips as squared as you can, so even on both sides. You're going to kick up the right leg behind you, finding your way into a three-legged dog, giving me an active brace into both feet. Tripada, Adho Mukha, Svanasana. Then think one-legged plank as you start to draw your floating leg towards the armpit on the same side. Stay here or find your way into fallen triangle by crossing the leg across the midline. So the second time we're coming into fallen triangle, you know where you're going to now. Hold here, making the right hip maybe just a little bit heavier to the floor. Then start to change the angle of that leg that you stepped through, starting to draw the knee back across the midline of the body. Relax that leg to the floor. Relax the back knee, shin and foot. Slide, walk or creep the back of the way. So make sure you've got enough runway behind you. Finding your way into a high pigeon. Maybe you just stand here, both hands on the floor, or maybe you'd like to take a little bind to that back foot and set up almost a dancer-like frame where you're using just the pull up from the inseam of both legs and your core to hold the frame. Sit and hug your thigh just gently towards your chest. Hug that whole thigh, and maybe using the inside of your elbow and your forearm and your palm to really hug that whole thigh in. Then think about how you're going to use the current frame of your legs to find your way into a little gate seat. Untwist your trunk and start to unwrap the top leg, maybe extending it and reaching for the front corner of your mat while placing the sole of the foot on the inseam of your extended leg. Give me a soft forward fold. Maybe you're just framing your ears on either side, or maybe you're giving me an active reach for your toes, pulling your toes towards your nose, giving me wide elbows, working your arms, your core, and your legs in the stretch as you think nose to knee, Janu Sukhasana. Give yourself a few moments here, maybe just breathing nice and deeply into the back and the sides of your ribs. Then before we transition, think of the current frame of your legs and how you're going to use this frame to come into a lizard-like lunge on the mat. So start to peel up. Place both hands on the floor. Start to swing your extended leg behind you. Start to change the setup frame on the lead leg. So you can think pigeon first. So square up once again in your pigeon line. And then step your front leg to the outside of your lead leg. First tuck the toes of your back leg under, bring the knee up off the floor so that you've got a little bit of height to work with. Step your front leg to the outside of the lead hand, angling in the foot slightly at 45. Maybe you want to even knife edge the foot for a moment and get quite an intense stretch on the inseam of that leg. So, Uttan Prasthasana, open lizard. Stay here in lizard, or step up the back leg, replicating the lizard line on side 2 as you come into a deep squat. Maybe hands to floor, or maybe even hands to prayer. Just find that drop down through the pelvis, and your leg line through the feet are as wide or as narrow as you need to try to ground both of your feet. If you find it impossible to ground, you could give me a heel lift off the floor. You could even wedge maybe a block underneath each foot, or you could take a block and sit it underneath your bum so that it almost feels like you're sitting squatted on a little stool. Stay here in deep squat, Malasana, or look for an opportunity to come into a little crow pose, maybe placing both hands on the floor. You can either transfer the weight directly from your knees onto the triceps, or you can step the feet back. I'll give you a demo, giving me a little froggy frame on the floor with the heels off the floor tapped together and the knees out to the side of the room as you place your hands on the mat in front of you. Start to rock the weight forward. So transition, weight from the back comes to the front and you're placing your knees on your triceps, holding here or lifting one foot and then the other foot off the mat, coming into the full balancing version of crow pose, Bakasana. Look for that strength through the arms and the core. Legs are just balancing at this stage. Then step your legs back into parallel. Bleed up. Find your way back to your original standing frame on the mat for your little transition flow. Exhale to sit into chair. Inhale to stand up nice and tall in mountain. Give yourself at least 3 or 4 flows. So it's a working rest. And in your seat, take it into a forward fold, working your Uttanasana dynamically, and then maybe looking for an opportunity to extend and hold the leg up, looking for that inversion of the blood in your head. Step the left leg back, set up your pyramid. Start to play with the rock between the front foot and the back foot. Starting to look for that delicious stretch, not only up the lead leg, but also up the back leg. Then look for an opportunity to ground and hold the stretch on both legs. Step it back into a full lunge, dropping down through the pelvis. Maybe wiggle, walking the lead leg away and see if you can get more drop down through the pelvis. Find your way into plank, nice and strong. Keep that strength through the core as you chaturanga down, bending the elbows, hugging them in towards your ribs, driving the weight forward. Find your up dog. Move into your down dog and work it. Bending and extending both legs in unison so you can feel those glutes, you can feel the quads, the hamstrings working. Take a little hop up, ground your feet, come into your chair, Utkatasana, hands to heart center. Find your way into a table fold here. Pause, look for strength. Soften your knees, place your hands on the floor, step or hop back into a full expression of down dog. Hold. Look for that sense of the weight being even on the left and the right side of your spine and try to keep that sense of evenness. So no pop and rotate through the hip as you gently allow the left leg to float behind you in a 3-legged dog. Tripada Adho Mukha Svanasana. Stay here or think one-legged plank as you start to bring your floating leg towards the armpit on the same side of the body. Hold nice and strong through the core, arms working, legs working, core working. Alright, set up your fallen triangle, step that leg across the midline of the body, making the left hip a little bit heavier into the mat. Pause here. Maybe bleed your way back into pigeon, finding your way onto the mat. Maybe you want to play with a high pigeon, or maybe you want to use this as an opportunity to tap into your leg, your core strength, by drawing up on the inseam of both legs, seeing if you can float that back foot off the floor, maybe reaching for it, actively kicking foot into hand. Maybe you can float the other arm off the mat and just look for a balance. So maybe just reaching the arm out in front, or maybe taking a little active Gyun Mudra, thinking of making an O frame between your index finger and your thumb, and then just opening up the other fingers and extending them palm up. And find your way into a half-load seat by resting into your leg bum cheek, swinging the back leg around to hook to the outside of the lead knee. Start to make sure both of your bum bones are grounded into the mat, so wiggle your bottom foot out the way if you need to, and then twist towards your lead thigh and just hug thigh in. Actively use the inside of your elbow, use the forearm, use the palm to just hug the whole in. Hug the leg in and give yourself a good squeeze. Try to keep both bum bones grounded and twist to look over the back shoulder towards the back edge of your mat, giving you the tallest spine you can manage. Then start to untwist your trunk. Start to unwrap your top leg and aim it for the front corner of your mat, readjusting the other foot so that the sole of the foot is on the inseam of your extended leg. And then just give me a fold. Maybe that's a halfway fold, or maybe you're coming hands to thigh or hands to floor, or maybe you're making that foot your aim. Play where you're comfortable. Give yourself a few moments here, maybe actively tugging on that foot if you can, so thinking, bringing the whole ball of your foot and the toes closer towards your nose. Working your arms actively, keeping your belly button pulled into center as you work the fold. Then lead your way back up, look at your legs and think about how you're going to use this setup to find your way into a high lizard. Start to place your hands on the floor. Swing your extended leg back, maybe setting yourself up in a pigeon line first. Once you've found the pigeon, you're going to readjust the front leg. So first tuck the toes of the back leg under, bring the knee up off the floor so that you've got more height to work with. Then start to bring the front leg up and step it out to the outside of your lead hand. Opening up that foot to 45, maybe you want a knife edge and hold for a moment here, looking for that intense stretch up the inseam of the leg. Then reground the front foot. Replicate your step out line on side 2 and drop down into your low squat malasana. Maybe hands to floor, maybe hands to prayer. Take a moment here, using your block or blocks to modify as you need to. Stay here in your deep squat, malasana, or lead your way into crow pose by finding your way into a little arm balance, placing both hands on the mat. Maybe you're just leaning directly into it, or maybe you're first finding your little hop 2 position and then leaning into the arms, seeing if you can bring one foot and maybe the other one off the mat. And if the full expression of crow isn't possible, just lean the weight into your tricep today and try to hold it there. So no rocking back and forth, just hold and see if you can load into the arms. Remember, we're trying to work arms, legs, and core today. So find the crow expression that works for you. And then think about how you're going to find your way from crow into Shavasana, corpse pose. So maybe sitting back into your squat line, using hands or no hands, you're going to drop down to your booty. You're going to extend the legs in front, maybe placing the hands on the floor behind you. As you ease your way onto the back, opening up the arms at your side, maybe thinking soft starfish-like expression after all that hard work. And just give yourself a few quiet moments of repose here in child pose. Allowing for a neutral spine. Start to settle the whole weight of your body into the mat. Close your eyes. Take your focus inward. Start to soften the skin over your head. Start to feel that softness extend from the skull to the front of your face. Feel the skin over your lids, your nose, your cheeks, your lips, your chin begin to soften. Allow that softness to bleed down through the jaw and the neckline, through the collar line, through the line of the arms, making its way all the way to the tip of each finger. Then soften from your collar line through the line of the spine. Think back, think shoulders, upper back, mid back, lower back. Melt your bottom into the mat. Then think soft from the collar line through the front chain. Think soft chest, soft belly, soft hips, soft pelvis. Allow that softness to extend down through the line of the legs. Think hamstrings, think quads, soft knee joints. Soften your calves, even the shin bones. Allow that softness to extend through the ankle line and make its way to the tip of each little toe. Start to focus once more on your breath. On each exhale, just soften crown to fingers, crown to toes. Starting to feel like the body is just soft and floating. End of your practice today, blissed out in Shavasana, corpse pose, chilling here for as long as you need to before you end your practice with just a soft nod of your chin to your chest on the words Namaste. When you're ready to come out after your chill, just make sure you roll softly onto one side. Give yourself a few moments there before you come to a seated and then maybe a standing frame on your mat. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do hope that you enjoyed today's class. Till next time, keep it light.